Welcome to Rooted in Retirement with Zach Gray, founder of Rooted Wealth Advisors. Zach and the team help families here in Illinois plan successfully for retirement. They strive to understand all of your financial needs to help guide you on the path to your ideal retirement. This is Rooted in Retirement.
Most of us probably aren't looking to live in the lap of luxury come retirement, yet we don't want to just get by either. Ask many Americans and they may tell you they define retirement success as being comfortable. If that's you, you'll want to stay tuned. Today, Zach shares the 4 things that can help you achieve a comfortable retirement. Plus, how many smart financial tools are in your retirement planning toolbox? In this week's Retirement Game Plan, Zach rolls up his sleeves on a handy approach to income planning. And later, we'll answer retirement questions from viewers just like you. And Zach, welcome back. It's good to be with you again.
Always good to be with you.
Well, as we talk about retirement, and I'm sure the families that you meet with may have a similar theme here. They're not necessarily looking to be rich or to strike it rich, if you will. They just want to be comfortable. Is that possible? How do you achieve that in retirement?
I think that you get a lot of that piece of retirement going back to income planning. We've talked about that in past shows, and I'll touch on it some more here, but I think you're right. Most of our clients have worked really hard for their hard-earned money, and that being said, they take it very seriously, and thus they should. And so as you start to think about all of these years working, there's, I think, a statistic out there that we're going to work for 90,000 hours. So we want to make sure that all that we've done to save and put away over those years, and sometimes that's tough times, right? I mean, you're raising kids maybe, and there's expenses and all of these things, these moving parts, and you've done your best to stack this money away. Let's make sure that we can preserve it and that we can be happy throughout our entire retirement.
I could have gone all day without you saying 90,000 hours. That sounds like a lot.
Yes, it is.
Well, a recent study shows retirees who are living what they deem a comfortable retirement are doing 4 things, and we're going to talk about those on this show. Let's start with the first one, and the first is they have guaranteed income. And I know this is a big topic. A lot of people want this. They strive for this. How important is guaranteed income when it comes to that comfortable lifestyle in retirement?
It's huge. And we've talked about, once again, income. I led with that in your first question, and it's because these non-negotiables of life, it's really important to cover that with guaranteed income. And yes, maybe there are some things that could throw a monkey wrench to that. I think about pensions that maybe have changed over the years a little bit, and maybe not for the better, right? That they've been cut or eliminated. But if you look at saying, okay, well, I've got this pension income, or I've got this property income, maybe that's a rental or farm ground income in central Illinois here. Maybe looking at Social Security. And yes, I understand there's some concerns of what Social Security could look like in the future, really back to that 2020 or 2033 number, I think, respectively. But that being said, yes, there are some concerns. Things could change, but we feel pretty confident that Social Security will be here, at least in some form. We feel pretty confident that, yeah, pensions will continue to pay out. Even, property cash flows continue to escalate and grow just a little bit year in, year out, typically. That being said, those are these more guaranteed pieces of the puzzle. You can supplement that with annuities, for example. And yes, all back to the carrier strength and how, good they can continue to pay things out. That's all very important for someone to look at. But it's another way that we can recreate another guaranteed cash flow that we can supplement, especially if we have a shortfall. So I think it's so important to go back to, what do we need in retirement? What's our budget look like? What is non-negotiable out of that budget? Hey, the roof over our head, the food on the table, things of that nature. Let's at least cover that month in, month out. And then all the extras, the fun things, we can add that and supplement as we can along the way.
Okay, here's a second common thing that people feel comfortable about when it comes to retiring, and that is having very little debt. That sounds really good, but is all debt bad?
It's not all bad. I would say that, as you start to think about the comfort that you have of having something paid off, think about, the feeling of paying off a car, or if you've paid off your home, or a credit card or something of that nature. And that leads me to the example that I would say the home debt of 3%, give or take, compared to a credit card that could be in the teens or the 20s in terms of an interest rate. that's where I start to say, I don't know that necessarily property debt or well-leveraged assets or businesses, things of that nature to continue to grow and scale are a bad thing. I've used that leverage in my own personal life, and I'm comfortable with that. However, when someone comes in and says, hey, I've got these credit cards that have built over the years, we typically say, let's turn our attention that way, not because we're going to be doing some sort of consolidation or help in that regard, but we do have to at least respect the fact that interest on our home or an auto debt, very low. I'm not necessarily losing a lot of sleep about that. On a credit card, though, a very high interest debt, we have to take that a look at that under a different microscope.
And of course, I'm sure that's a different conversation with every single client, what their debt looks like when they come into your office, how you have to maybe counsel them out of that, or talk to them about, you don't have to avoid all debt. Correct,
exactly. I think that that's so important. And everyone's got different opinions on that. I mean, even just religious viewpoints on that. I mean, there's a lot that has come up over time, and I understand that everyone's got a different opinion on that. But I would say as we wrap up here, it is important to understand that not taking a cookie cutter approach to retirement or your financial picture, even if you're not close to retirement, is so important. Don't just go in blindly to following someone, some group, some firm, myself included. Make sure that you're vetting that out, that you're understanding the information that's being presented, and that once again, your situation is unique. You're unique. Mine's a different scenario than yours. So we have to start to take a look at what are the differences and how can we tailor that to you and I respectively, or anyone out there watching.
Okay, we've covered guaranteed income and very little debt. We've got 2 more to come, so stick around, don't go anywhere. And if you would like a comfortable retirement, we're sharing those 4 things. A new study says it is key to helping you achieve that retirement satisfaction. We'll share the next 2 when we come back. Stay tuned.
You know you want to retire. You might even know when you want to retire. What you don't know is what the world will look like. A short market drop, a crash, a recession. What if I told you these words don't have to change your retirement dreams? World events can impact your retirement, but thankfully, they don't have to. Can your retirement survive the unexpected? Visit the link to find your risk score to help you prepare for retirement when you're ready. It's time for you, not outside forces, to be in control of your retirement. Find your risk score so you can be ready no matter what comes next.
Hi, it's Zach Gray from Rooted Wealth Advisors. If you're like many people, you might be wondering if you're ready for retirement. Have you saved enough? How much income will you need? When can you retire? Planning for retirement can feel overwhelming. That's why we created our Retirement Roadmap Toolkit. It's designed to give you the resources to gain confidence as you start your journey to and through retirement. Visit the link today to get your free toolkit. At Rooted Wealth Advisors, we believe you deserve to have a great retirement. Visit the link to receive your free kit today.
Welcome back to Rooted in Retirement with Zach Gray of Rooted Wealth Advisors.
Ask many people, and they have some pretty big goals for retirement. Struggling financially is typically not one of them. So what does it take to retire comfortably? I'm back with Zach Gray now, and we're trying to, let everybody reach that goal of a comfortable retirement. And this new study that we've touched on really kind of focuses in on 4 key things that the people in the study have in common where they feel most comfortable. And we talked about guaranteed income. We talked about having little or no debt. This next one is having a drawdown strategy. Explain what that is.
That is where we're going to pull the money from. So how are we going to draw down these different accounts over time? And so how are we going to get the income? And what I think a lot of folks don't understand is that strategy is important. Many times folks get to the point of retirement and they say, Amy, I've put some money away in savings. I'm going to use that first. You know what? And then at that point, maybe I'll use some of my Roth money next, because by that time, I'll probably use most of that money, but I'll be 72 anyway, and I've got to take my RMDs. The issue with that is there is a right order of liquidation. Something key for everyone to hear and understand. The right way to liquidate or use your accounts, to draw them down over time. So be thinking about the fact of my example, pulling money from a savings account. Yeah, there's a little bit of taxation to that, but not much. So in that position, we might have a very, very low tax consequence. Maybe if we're taking something like Social Security at the time, we have no tax to it. I gave the example of a Roth next. I tend to always think that that should be used last for a lot of reasons, but nonetheless, we pull money out of there, once again, no tax at all, and thus very little tax maybe to our Social Security income. Once again, very, very low taxation. And then all of a sudden, here comes 72, and we are going to scoot well up the tax ladder typically in terms of pulling from those tax-deferred investments, and thus that might cause something like Social Security to become taxed, which means that we might have to pull even more money out of there just to maintain the same standard of income or living. So I just want folks to understand the right way to draw down the money is very important for them to understand. This shouldn't be some shoot from the hip type of position in how much you have put away, the different income cash flows that you have in retirement. All of that has to come together in a very comprehensive strategy.
Is it difficult for some retirees to spend down on that nest egg? Is it a big step to take?
It can be. I think it's a bit of a mental hurdle. And I was just chatting about that with a client here not too long ago. And it's interesting. We have some folks that have plenty saved that frankly might not ever even spend down through those dollars and really don't want to. They want to see that number continue to build. We have some other folks that, live a little bit more on the thin line of making sure their money's going to last its entirety. Two different types of conversations, but I think it is important for folks to understand that it's okay to spend some of that money. Yes, we have to be honest with ourselves. Do we have enough to support the lifestyle that we're trying to live? That has to be first and foremost the conversation. It goes back to budget, just even foundational financial concepts. But I do want folks to understand that, hey, it's your money. Use it as you see fit.
I like this last one because I think it really hits home with why we're having this conversation. The fourth common trait is that they believe they should seek financial advice. And of course, it's what you do every single day at Rooted Wealth Advisors. It's your calling card. How important is this?
Well, I will say is that I definitely think that is important, and obviously that's a bit self-serving to myself. I mean, I've built an entire firm based around the idea of making sure that we give the best financial advice that we possibly can. That said, I will say is that pulling all these pieces together is not easy. And just because you can do some things does not necessarily mean that you should. I can probably change oil in my car. It's been a few years, but I will say is that now when I pop the hood, it's much different than when I was a teenager. A lot more complex, a lot more stuffed under the engine or under the hood into that engine, and I don't really want to mess something up if I'm being honest. And as you start to think about the complexity of all these portfolio designs and taxes and all the moving parts there and how it's ever changing and looking at income cash flows and the right way to pull from these different buckets at the right time, it can get a little bit confusing. This is what we do. We're super proud to help folks in Central Illinois and really across the country at this point. And I will say is that, yes, I would seek out that financial professional that you trust and that you can really build that relationship with over time. It's why we call our firm Rooted Wealth Advisors. It's because we really are connected to our clients. And I think that should be true whether it's our firm or someone else that our watchers can trust to help guide them through retirement.
And as you seek out that financial advice, you and I both know, we've talked about this before, it's not always a good fit. You don't always fit with whoever you may be speaking with. How often do you recommend people get a second opinion? Go see if there's another person that can help them in a better way.
Yeah, I mean, sometimes folks just call into the show and it's because, they are looking for that second opinion. Sometimes we shake their hand after that and say, congratulations, you're doing an excellent job. And other times we say, you know what, here's a few glaring issues that we see. I think you should fix that and we can help. We'll at least be honest and transparent of whether we can or can't help. And it's always good to gather some different ideas, digest that information, and then at that point, hopefully make the best decision that you can based on that data. So I would say is getting that second opinion, getting a different set of eyes, it's critical, and if someone wants to call into the show, by all means, we can help with that.
It is a relationship that lasts many years. You want it to be a good one. All right, thank you, Zach. Up next in this week's Retirement Game Plan, we'll step into Zach's workshop for a look at some of the smart financial tools you may want in your retirement planning toolbox. And later, your retirement questions answered in our Q&A section. Stay tuned.
Social Security. You've been paying into the system your whole career. Now it's time to get the most out of it. But with so many choices, what's the best strategy for you? And how can you maximize your benefits? Find out in this no-obligation Social Security report. Learn how your Social Security benefits can play a role in your overall retirement income plan. A lot of factors go into optimizing your benefits, and if you make an informed decision, you could end up with tens of thousands of extra dollars in retirement. You only get one chance to make the best decision for you. Take the first step and download the Social Security report today.
You're watching Rooted in Retirement with Zach Gray of Rooted Wealth Advisors.
Ever try to tackle a DIY project with the wrong tool? It sure can be frustrating. In this week's Retirement Game Plan, Zach explains why having the right set of financial tools can make all the difference to your retirement. Zach?
Thanks, Amy. And in this week's Retirement Game Plan, we're going to talk a lot about having the right tool for the job. So picture this. You come home after the Friday of the work week and you notice that honey-do list that's waiting for you. Now this doesn't matter if it's for him or for her, but I will say is what's on the list? Is it something that's little where you can just pop into the kitchen and get that fixed? Or is it something much bigger and you might find yourself driving down to the hardware store and maybe grabbing some power tools and a lot more supplies to fix that deck outside that maybe your spouse has been waiting on for a few months? Now here's the point. You got to have the right tool for that respective job. And this lays really heavily on my heart because I think about the way that I came into this business. Well, I came in and I worked for a captive company. It was a big company in the area and it was a great start to my career. But what I quickly noticed is that we were using a lot of the same tool for the job. There was only so many tools that were in the toolbox at that point. And as we started to think about the fact of, maybe we're in a position that we should be using some different items. Maybe they shouldn't all, well, frankly, look exactly the same. And you might think about this a lot with maybe that big company in your hometown or that big captive company that you see a lot on some television commercials. You might find yourself in a scenario where you say, you know what, I need to save for retirement, and you know what? They've got the tool, once again, for the job. However, you might go back to them at the end of that year and say, you know, I've got some tax questions. Is there someone I can chat with about that? Maybe I can do something about that. But wouldn't you know it, they reach down into the toolbox and, wait a minute, they pull out the same tool. And it looks a lot like this one. Now there might be some little subtle nuances. Maybe this is one sort of mutual fund and maybe there's just another mutual fund in the bottom drawer. But the irony here is that, well, it's kind of the same thing. Now you go back to them maybe another year or two down the line and you say, you know what, I want to start to plan for long-term care. I want to do some estate planning. What do you have in that toolbox for me now? And they say, I've got just the thing. And wouldn't you know it, that looks exactly the same as some of the other tools that we have in that same toolbox. Now I will tell you is that early on in my career, I felt a little bit like this. Working for that captive company, you've only got the tools in the toolbox that they allow you to have. And that quickly made my decision to start my own independent financial planning firm, to work in a fiduciary manner for our clients, because I think that's what you deserve. Because as you start to think about those differences of maybe just fixing a little something in the kitchen, maybe it's a lot different if you're going to go out and, well, you're going to build that deck. And so as I start to think about the fact that, maybe different investments should look different in my toolbox. Maybe I should have some similarities to options that are maybe once again at that big box store. But maybe there should be some things that look a little bit different if I need to pull a different tool out. And then once again, if we go back and we have that conversation about taxes, well, maybe that should just be in a different tool altogether. I don't necessarily think that they should all look the same. Something should probably change there. And once again, as we get to something that's more specific, like maybe long-term care planning or estate planning, maybe I have to pull something totally different out of the toolbox to make that work. So it's not going to look the same as what we might recommend to accumulate money or to grow money. It's going to have to look a lot different for obvious reasons. So I would challenge you. Take a look back at your portfolio. Get to thinking about, what do I have in mind? And if you feel like, well, maybe a lot of these things look just like some of the other options that I've used for accumulation, maybe that doesn't make sense for tax planning. Maybe this one shouldn't look the same when it comes to income planning because, you know what, we're not growing anymore. We need to have it dispersing out to us. Isn't there a little bit of irony there? And as you start to think about the fact of saying, well, maybe I should have some different tools in the toolbox for some different concerns, some different projects around the house, but also projects when it comes to your retirement plan. Give that some thought. And I think that you might find that not having the same tool for every single little job around the house or not having the same tool for every single financial planning concern can be very, very important and can lead you to a very fruitful retirement. Back to you, Amy.
Thanks, Zach. Up next, get answers to your retirement questions in our Q&A segment. That's up next. Stay tuned.
There are some things you can't avoid, but you can avoid overpaying taxes in retirement. You may think your taxes will go down in retirement, but that's not always true. In fact, sometimes your tax liability could go up. We're offering a free guide to show how you may be able to pay fewer taxes in retirement. Learn how different retirement accounts are taxed and options to help make your retirement income more tax efficient, all in easy to understand terms. Download this free tax guide now to help keep what's yours and avoid overpaying taxes in retirement.
Welcome back to Rooted in Retirement with Zach Gray of Rooted Wealth Advisors.
Time to get to your questions. And Zach, I know you're always ready for this segment. Here we go.
All right, let's do it.
Here's your first question. It is from Rosalind in Normal. I just found out I will be receiving about $100,000 from a life insurance policy after my grandpa passed away. I'm stunned by the amount because I really didn't expect it. So I have two questions. What should I do with this money? And I really want to be able to do something like this for my own grandkids one day. So how can I make that happen? It's a loaded question for you.
There's a lot there, but I would say is that most of the time a life insurance benefit is going to be free of taxes. There's some unique situations where that might not be the case, but in this situation, chances are that windfall of the $100,000 is going to be totally tax-free. No taxes to be paid. So I would say let's focus there first. If you're going to invest it, let's be as tax efficient as possible. So maybe we can put that in a non-qualified account. Build it in a way that's going to be very little taxation over time. Maybe we can even chip away at it and put some money into something like a Roth type of vehicle. If this person wants to make sure to do something very similar for their loved ones, maybe we take a portion of that and we put it back to premiums for another life insurance policy that obviously would pay out maybe upon their passing. So there's a lot of different options, but what I would say is that if we want to recreate that, life insurance might be one of the best ways to do so if that person is healthy enough to qualify for life insurance, because that is something to talk about as well. But on top of that, if we're going to invest it, hey, Amy, it came out tax-free. Let's try to maintain as much tax efficiency as we can.
Okay, here's another one for you, Zach. This one is from Robert in Paxton. I can't keep up with what's going on with required minimum distributions. When do we have to take those?
You have to take them at 72 now. So there's been a change. It was 70 and a half. It's been pushed back to 72, and that's part of that Secure Act. We're going to want to make sure to take it because there's a big penalty to pay if we don't take that money out at the right time. It's a 50% penalty. So not only do we have to pull the money out and pay ordinary income tax, we have a penalty on top of that if we don't get that timely. And yes, it has gotten a little bit confusing. COVID did change some of those rules here. And so it's one of those things that in 2020, as we look back, that is something that was maybe a discussion point. Do I have to take it? Do I not have to take it? But just so we all are clear, 72 is that key age. Let's make sure that we're doing everything that we can to make sure the T's are crossed and I's are dotted there, because we don't want to have these penalties on top of taxes to worry about.
Timing is everything. Okay, here's another question for you from Marcy in Buckley. I've heard you mention longevity several times on the show, and I just don't think it's something that applies to me, given my family history. If it's not a huge concern, is there a way to set up my money so I can do some fun things while I'm willing and able to do it, but have a backup plan just in case I live longer than expected?
That's a tough one. It's a cake and eat it too type of answer. And yes, I think that if we had the crystal ball, we knew how long we were going to live, Of course, we would all maybe do things a little bit differently. Maybe we would spend through some of the dollars in this example. There's a lot of different things outside of just financial terms that we might do differently. That being said, Amy, I don't have that crystal ball. Mine's broken, right? So I just would say, as we start to think about this, yes, we can spend through that money. And yes, maybe there is something that's very legitimate about this concern. Maybe there is something that we don't know about this person's health that would lead us to say, yes, this is not going to be a long time horizon, and thus maybe it is a warranted decision to pull some of these dollars out. The catch here is this: if we're going to pull a lot of those dollars out to do fun, exciting things, we need to make sure that we have enough, because the secondary question is, but wait, what if I do live a long time? And that's a balancing act. That goes back to us getting that income plan in place, building it really for these, more, I guess, conservative situations in the case of this worst case, but then seeing, okay, now, is there anything left over? Is there anything extra that we can do some fun things with? All back to what we were talking about with income planning.
Okay, got time for one more?
Let's give it a shot.
All right, here we go. Here's a question from Trent in Towanda. Is my Social Security benefit going to be taxed? I'm having trouble figuring out what to expect with that.
Every situation's unique, and we've talked about that a bunch, right? No cookie cutter approach, and this is going to be tough because we have to give a bit of a cookie cutter answer. The answer is I don't know. If you look at this, I need to know more about that question to probably answer it in its entirety. But chances are there's going to be some of your Social Security that's taxed. There's different thresholds. So there is penalties leading maybe up until this full retirement age. That's a separate discussion than just provisional income taxation. Thresholds that are set single or married filing jointly, and then thus have 0% of Social Security taxed. The next step on that ladder is a 50% taxation. That's a big jump. Now 50% taxed at a highest ordinary income rate, just so we all are clear, not 50% disappearing to tax. And then the final step is 85%. So now we're taking over 3/4 of this cash flow, taxing it at its highest ordinary income rate for the household. And keep in mind, Amy, that would be for you and a spouse. And that's the total household Social Security. So the quick answer is yes, chances are there could be some sort of taxation, especially if you have other cash flows into the household, pensions, property cash flows, pulling money from old 401ks or traditional IRAs, even RMDs. All of that's going to calculate back to that equation, which is really anything from a taxable account, including pensions, anything from a tax-deferred account, which includes RMDs, and then 1/2 of the household Social Security. To keep in mind, 0, 50, 85.
Okay, thanks so much, Zach, as always. And if you have a question, submit it, and we may just answer it on a future show. And if you want to know how to generate lifetime income, reduce your tax bill, and maintain your lifestyle in retirement, reach out now to start planning for your ideal retirement. For Zach and the team at Rooted Wealth Advisors, I'm Amy Sharp, wishing you a healthy and happy journey to and through retirement.